Hello, this video is a little different. I normally make videos exploring interesting places and talking about them in Welsh, but this video is about getting started with a new language using Say Something in Welsh or Say Something in Spanish. If you've tried the Say Something in Welsh method and found it too difficult because you can't remember the long sentences, this video may help. If you've heard of Say Something in Welsh but never tried it, this video will give you an idea of how the method works. Just a disclaimer, I have nothing to do with Say Something in Welsh. I have no connection with Aaron or the company. I'm just a satisfied user of their materials which I've subscribed and paid for. This question comes up on the Say Something in Welsh forums a lot. People with poor short-term memories usually find the Say Something in method extremely difficult. I have a terrible short-term memory and always have had, even as a child. I could never do mental arithmetic tests and found them very distressing. I actually attempted to use the Say Something in Welsh course a couple of times over a period of a few years, but gave up frustrated. It was only because I'd seen several people become fluent speakers using the method that I even gave it another try. So this video is about how I finally found a way to successfully use the Say Something in method of language learning. I've lived in Wales since the 1970s and I'd been learning Welsh for many years before Say Something in Welsh even existed. However, although I'd done lots of classes and knew a lot of Welsh in theory, I could never get the words out fast enough to have a proper conversation in real time. So although I didn't learn Welsh with Say Something in Welsh, it did the trick to get the Welsh onto the tip of my tongue so I could speak fluently. Having used Say Something in Welsh successfully to revise and improve my Welsh language skills, I'm now using Say Something in Spanish to see if I can successfully learn a new language from scratch using an audio-only method. So how does Say Something in Welsh work? Firstly, it's audio-only. Aaron teaches you some phrases, then you use the phrases to create sentences.
The Spanish for I was speaking is estaba hablando. Estaba hablando. I was speaking.
Estaba hablando.
Estaba hablando.
Estaba hablando.
I was speaking with my brother.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano.
A transcript of the words and phrases is provided, but you're not supposed to look at them while working through a challenge. The other problem for people with poor short-term memories is that Aaron tells you not to repeat the challenge and to simply push on.
However quickly or slowly you've gone through it, you will find it bedding down and becoming easier and easier over the next few weeks, particularly if you listen to our recommendations about how to avoid doing too much practice.
If you have a good or normal short-term memory, this is fine. But if, like me, your short-term memory is really bad, you'll just get overwhelmed, frustrated, and you'll probably give up. As I said, I had 2 attempts at using Say Something in Welsh before I could make the method work for me, and I was already quite an advanced Welsh learner. It was only because I'd seen so many people succeed with it that I kept trying. When people ask for advice in the Say Something in Welsh forum, the usual suggestion is to use the pause button to give yourself more time to think. This is the recommended way to cope when you have a poor memory, so don't hesitate to use the pause button if that helps you. Personally, I don't use it because I normally do the challenges while performing some routine tasks. Currently, I'm doing challenges in Spanish while washing up, but I've done Say Something in Welsh while ironing or going for walks. But my main problem is not that I can't think of the Welsh or Spanish and say it in the gap, it's that when the sentences get long, I find it next to impossible to remember and repeat them in English, so there's no chance of being able to say them in another language. The breakthrough came when I realised I didn't have to wait for Aaron to stop speaking before starting to say the Welsh. I'm now using the same technique while using Say Something in Spanish. As soon as I hear a phrase that I can translate, I start speaking, even though that means talking over Aaron. Here's what I mean.
She told me that my
Ella me
brother said
dijo
that
que
he
mi hermano
wanted to ask
dijo
you something.
que él quiere preguntarle algo.
Ella me dijo que mi hermano dijo que él quería preguntarle algo.
It really shouldn't work. It sounds awful to anyone listening, but it is possible to take in the rest of the sentence even while you're speaking. I recommend giving it a try. The other thing that helped was realising that you don't have to do the whole challenge in one go. Most challenges are 30 to 35 minutes, but now I generally do 15 minutes at a time. At this point I can feel my brain getting tired and slower to respond. At that point just stop, give your brain a rest and carry on later or the next day. If you do 10 to 15 minutes a day, even allowing for repetition, that will mean you can complete around one challenge per week. Learning a language is not a race. And finally, if you have a poor working memory, you will need to do the challenges more than once. Aaron urges people to continue to the next challenge without repeating, but I feel you need to be getting 80% right before you can say it's sunk in. People with poor short-term memories will need to repeat challenges. However, don't get stuck repeating a challenge until it's perfect. I find 3 times is about right for me, as I start to get used to a new language. However, having said that you need to do the challenges more than once, I don't advise repeating the same challenge multiple times. What I mean is, don't do challenge 1 4 times, challenge 2 4 times, then challenge 3 4 times, and so on and so on. This runs the risk of A, boredom, and B, perfectionism. You'll start to think you can't move on until you get everything 100% right, and the method doesn't need you to be perfect because repetition is built in. I suggest that you find a pattern of rolling repetition that works for you. Here's what I found works for me. By the way, I'm using say something in Spanish to demonstrate what I mean rather than say something in Welsh because I'm a pretty confident Welsh speaker now, but I'm a genuine new learner in Spanish. But whichever say something in course you're starting, the same advice will apply. So first, I flounder my way through a new challenge.
Your sister knows someone who likes this book.
Su hermana conoce a alguien a quien le gusta.
Su hermana conoce a alguien a quien le gusta este libro.
He likes that film.
Él le gusta ella. No, él le. Most of us have taken away the message from school that you should get things right, so it can be hard to make a complete mess of a challenge on the first attempt. Being unable to do it first time, being unable to remember and repeat phrases can make you think the method isn't right for you. My favourite Welsh proverb is dyfal donc a dir y garreg. Many blows break the stone. Hitting the challenge once won't do much, but you will get better with repetition. So after struggling through a new challenge, I go back and repeat the previous challenge. This is now the 3rd time I've done this challenge, which is challenge 15.
I was speaking with my brother yesterday.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano ayer.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano ayer.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano ayer.
I was speaking with my brother in the pub yesterday.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano en el pub ayer.
Estaba hablando con mi hermano en el pub ayer.
As you can see, much more confident. After repeating a familiar challenge, I'll have a second go at the new challenge I made a mess of the first time.
Your sister knows someone who likes this book.
Su hermana conoce a alguien a quien le gusta este libro.
Su hermana conoce a alguien a quien le gusta este libro.
It's still not good, but it's better than the first attempt. However, instead of immediately repeating it, I push on to a brand new challenge. I'm really struggling again, but I have finally learnt to relax, just do what I can and trust the method. Having struggled through challenge 17, I now go back to repeat challenge 16. It now feels like a relief to go back to more familiar material. I'm starting to sound more fluent.
Your sister knows someone who likes this book.
Su hermana conoce a alguien a quien le gusta
Su
este
hermana
libro.
conoce a alguien a quien le gusta este libro.
Next I'll repeat challenge 17, which now seems a bit easier, before pushing on to brand new challenge 18, and so on and so on. It works out to doing each challenge 3 times. You may get away with fewer repetitions, you may need more. I also recommend going back occasionally and running more quickly through the last block of 5 challenges, just to help them sink in more. Anyway, I just want to stress that this is what I found works for me. You don't need to follow my pattern exactly. You may only need to do each challenge twice, or you may need to do them 4 times. But I hope it will encourage you to experiment with different patterns of repetition until you find something that works for you. Basically, try to mix it up with some sort of rolling repeat. Don't just repeat one challenge until you think it's perfect. You'll get very bored, and more importantly, it will be a horrible shock when you try the next new challenge and find yourself really struggling with new phrases. In my next video, I'll be back to vlogging in Welsh, but as this was aimed at beginners who are finding Say Something in Welsh very difficult, I thought it would be better to use English. Regarding the Spanish, I hope to review my progress sometime in the future to reflect on how far I've got and whether the Say Something in audio only method really does work for visual learners with poor working memories, especially if, like me, it's the only course you're using. So bye for now. There'll be more videos in Welsh coming soon.